Why Wasn't It Better? I'm your host, Patrick Darms.
I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
And we have a return guest who listeners may recall from episodes as Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, and Alien Romulus. Kai Wang, welcome back.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me again.
Hey Kai, how's it been? How you doing?
Pretty good, still here for the love of the game. Nothing to plug yet.
Oh, love it, love it. Well, you know what? We're excited to have you.
Would you like to plug perhaps Moonraker trading cards?
Yeah, I think Pat has some for sale if you guys are interested. I don't know
I
how
do.
he got them.
Are those some PSA 10s?
If they are, it's a miracle. They're actually in pretty good shape. I mean,
very nice.
Yeah.
I see you guys are deep enough in the card game that you know about PSA and all that stuff.
You know, Anton is a far more knowledgeable person about it than I am.
AK, I'm just a bigger nerd about trading cards. So.
Well, I mean, do you have them framed, hung up in your living room like me?
You're right. It's just different spectrums of the nerd.
I don't know what's more impressive, the fact that I have Pokemon cards framed in my living room or that I was able to convince my wife that it was acceptable.
I think trading cards are art.
Yeah.
That's how I sold it to her. She agreed. I was like, thank goodness we got married.
Now, the collector in me does want to say, like, take those down and get them graded.
I know they're in at least good shape. They've been in top loaders for years. I mean, I've always kept them in the top loaders, so like they can't be bad.
Well, it could be if are those first editions, do you know?
Some of them are. Some of them are from like Pokemon the first movie. Like when I went to the theater, they were giving out the cards, which was pretty cool.
I'm telling you, man.
The Mew hieroglyphic one?
I have Mew, Mewtwo, and Dragonite from the Pokemon movie. I don't know if it's like the one you're talking about, but it's from the movie, so it's probably worth something.
Could be worth a pretty penny.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, when did that movie come out? 98, 99, right?
Must have been 99 because there's Pokemon movie 2000.
Yes, there is. Both of those films are on our list to cover, Anton. We will be doing full-length episodes on them at some point.
We've been talking a lot of Pokemon lately. I mean, I feel like maybe we should just kind of
bump that up.
Bump that up.
We can bump it up. Anton, you know my stance on this. If you put the notes together, I will cover any movie you want.
Exactly. And we have a lot of passion here for Pokemon.
Do we have passion for Moonraker, though? That's the real question.
Well,
I know I do.
Why don't we dig in?
And just so the listeners are aware, this is Kai's first experience with Moonraker.
I literally just watched it last night.
Well,
I wish I could go back and watch this for the first time.
Well, my friend, I'm excited for us to dig in together.
Let's go right ahead and get in because there's 9 pages of notes to get through. Just a quick reminder about we're on all the social media platforms. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please follow us. Please give us a nice 5-star review. We really would appreciate it. We have a Patreon. If you want to become a patron, if you love our podcast just that much, you'll get stuff like early access to episodes and ad-free. So just wanted to get that in there.
All right. Agent 007 blasts into orbit in this action-packed adventure that takes him to Venice, Rio de Janeiro, and outer space. When Bond investigates the hijacking of an American space shuttle, he and beautiful CIA agent Holly Goodhead are soon locked in a life-or-death struggle against Hugo Drax, a power-mad industrialist whose horrific scheme may destroy all human life on Earth. Released on June 26, 1979 by Eon Productions and United Artists, directed by Lewis Gilbert, screenplay by Christopher Wood, loosely based on the novel by Ian Fleming, starring Roger Moore, Lois Chiles, Michael Lonsdale, Richard Keel, Corinne Clary, Bernard Lee, Desmond Llewellyn, Jeffrey Keane, and Lois Maxwell. Budget of $34 million, so $147 million adjusted for inflation. Box office of $210 million, $908 million adjusted for inflation. So we're here today. We've joked a little bit, but Pat, why are we talking about Moonraker today?
Well, as the listeners know, we're covering most of the Bond movies. And of course, we were going to be covering this. It's the 11th film in the series, and Moonraker has a reputation. It's one of the most popular, most famous, and I would say most polarizing films in the series because a lot of people love this movie and a lot of Bond fans hate it. A lot of Bond fans that you meet will put this towards the bottom of their list when they're ranking the films. This is probably one of the first Bond movies that I ever remember seeing. And I loved this movie as a kid. It blew my mind. I was probably like 5 or 6 when I first saw this with my dad. And I don't know, to a 5 or 6-year-old who has also been introduced to Star Wars around the same time, what's not to like about this movie? It's James Bond. It's got space laser battles. Like, come on. That being said, having seen this movie, I don't know, probably 20 or 30 times, I can understand why it's polarizing. Anton, what's your history with this film?
Moonraker is one of the most fascinating films when I think of Bond. It is one that really sticks with me because of all of its, how is it described?
Imagery?
Yeah, or it's not science fiction, right?
It's science fact.
It's science fact. And oh my goodness, do they pack a lot of science fact into this film. I remember it very clearly from a young age just how out there in outer space this film is. So I do love me some Bond. I feel like this is a really fun one to talk about. So I'm really excited to dig in.
Kai, this is your first time seeing this movie. I mean, personally, I'm sure you'll agree, non-sarcastically, I don't really think that it's that ridiculous because space shuttles are real, lasers are real, space stations are real, wrist dart guns are real,
La-
Seikos are real.
laser guns also real.
It's true, correct. So I've never understood the controversy about this film. This is obviously something that could happen. Poison gas is real.
I would guess in 1979, maybe half of those things were real.
That's fair. Inflatable gondolas, real, not unheard of. We see it happen in this film. They really filmed one of those things. So, can pigeons do double takes? I've never seen that, but I wouldn't rule it out. So, the status of the series in 1979, Anton, let's go back a little bit. Roger Moore takes over the role of James Bond in 1973. His first film is Live and Let Die. It's very well received. It makes a lot of money. The following film is The Man with the Golden Gun. It comes out the next year. It does not really do that well. It's considered a slump in the series. There's a legal battle. Harry Saltzman, the co-producing partner along with Cubby Broccoli, he has to sell his share in the series. There's another legal battle that we'll get into a little bit when we talk about the production of this film. It delays things a bit. And Broccoli doubles down and gambles big with Moore's third film, The Spy Who Loved Me, which is an enormously successful film. It is seen as a high watermark in the series. Originally, they were going to follow that up with For Your Eyes Only, which would have come out this year, 1979.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens in 1977, the same year The Spy Who Loved Me comes out, is Star Wars comes out. And all of a sudden, there's this science fiction craze along with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Spielberg film. So Broccoli decides to not only pivot and make something more science fiction, but unabashedly, they just make the decision, we're going to run it back with The Spy Who Loved Me and just set it in space. They want to capitalize on the Star Wars craze, which I get. Bond at this point is chasing trends. The result was Moonraker. It was enormously successful. You gave us the numbers. That's almost $1 billion in today's money. That's an absurd amount of money. It has a lot of critics. The tone, the campiness, polarizing really is the right word. If you're ever, I don't know, on a Bond community message board, or you're at a Bond convention, or you're at a cocktail party and you're just talking about Bond movies in general, if you mention Moonraker, you're going to get strong reactions.
Yeah, no doubt. There are people that love this film, and it is probably on a lot of people's number one Bond film. And I could see it.
Kai, Moonraker, I warned you.
You did.
That you weren't ready for this. At what point during the film were you like, huh?
I would say I started to have that reaction when I realized that they were getting into the space shuttle and going to space. So I'd say,
Oh, pretty late. Okay.
I would say maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the way in, I started to be like, what the hell is happening here?
So not the pigeon double take.
Sorry, you're going to remind me what scene that was.
Well, that's when he turns his gondola into an inflatable hovercraft and he's driving through St. Mark's Square and everyone's just reacting. And you see a pigeon do a double take.
Honestly, I wouldn't even say that was all that ridiculous in the context of Bond movies. We had a submerged Lotus.
Is that nature or nurture? The pigeon double take.
Nurture?
Was that learned?
I don't know how they filmed that. I mean, to get the pigeon to cooperate like that, or maybe not cooperate.
I was going to say,
who knows what they did back then?
It's probably just they recorded it moving it one way and then just rewinded it twice and then forwarded it again.
Did you notice who the editor was on this film? He would direct the next 5 films after this.
Oh, goodness gracious.
John Glenn, the
Yeah.
astronaut. So a movie about space, and they went ahead and they hired an astronaut to edit the film, and then eventually he would end up directing all of the films in the 80s. I'm not serious at all. His name is John Glenn, though.
Yeah. A View to a Kill.
You damn right. You think that's his best work?
It's one of my faves.
Kai, wait till you get to A View to a Kill. You get Christopher Walken as the bad guy.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah. Mayday. Bruce Wayne. Why are you dressed up like Batman? Just wait till we get to the Batman Returns. I'm working on his speech, Anton, that he gives to the Christmas crowd. Santa Claus, afraid not. I'm just a poor schmo.
Oh
Got
my
lucky.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Selena, who'd have thought she had a brain to damage? She tries to blackmail me. I'll drop her out a higher window. Meanwhile, I've got better fish to fry. All right, we need to talk about Moonraker's production history, I think.
Let's do it.
So going back before Eon even acquired the film rights, the story was intended by author Ian Fleming to be a film even before he completed writing the novel in 1954. He based it on a screenplay manuscript that he had devised earlier. Other than the ill-fated collaboration with Kevin McClory, and for more information about that, please listen to our Thunderball and Never Say Never Again episodes. So other than that, Moonraker was the novel that Fleming himself had tried to get made into a film. His attempts at this are probably worthy of their own podcast episode, but long story short, that never happened. If anyone listening to this has not read the novel and they are curious, this film has very little in common with the novel, which is probably no surprise. I will recommend it because I think it's possibly the best of the Bond novels. It's one of my favorites. Other than the character Hugo Drax, the film's plot has basically nothing in common with the novel. And then, Anton, oddly enough, Die Another Day is the film that is closest to the novel Moonraker.
That is funny. And actually, I remember reading that in the behind this. Sorry, no, it was in the. There was a analysis of films closest to particular books. And yeah, I remember seeing that.
Moonraker ended up being the last James Bond novel to receive a screen adaptation until Casino Royale in 2006. So, of course, we mentioned this. They were chasing the success of Star Wars, and Broccoli decided to make this instead of For Your Eyes Only. They bring back director Lewis Gilbert. He had directed The Spy Who Loved Me. He had also directed You Only Live Twice. Certainly not a coincidence. Just run it back. Here's the really cool what if about this series. In early 1978, Steven Spielberg offered to direct this, but Cubby Broccoli turned him down. So it's the second time Broccoli turned down Spielberg. Just think about that.
Would have been a very different film.
Would have been. For someone who considers Spielberg to be their favorite filmmaker, I'm kind of okay with it though, because I love the Bond movies for what they are. And if he had directed this, maybe we don't get Close Encounters, maybe we don't get Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It just would have been. It just would have been a different movie,
right? But you also have to consider, like, one of the reasons he decided to do Raiders of the Lost Ark is he was lamenting to Lucas that he didn't get the chance to direct a Bond movie, and Lucas is like, "Well, I have this idea that's cooler than James Bond."
Mm-hmm.
So I think it all worked out.
But there is another universe where Steven Spielberg was so successful with directing James Bond that he went on to direct 10 more James Bond films.
Right.
I want to see that universe.
I don't want to see that universe.
I'm curious.
No, I don't. I know. Think about all the wonderful Spielberg stuff we wouldn't get.
I mean, you can still you still have this universe. If we're in this like made up universe where we can kind of look at other universes, you don't want to take a look?
Anton, are you willing to sacrifice your love for A View to a Kill?
I feel like we're looking at this a little bit too zero sum. I'm saying we can go between universes and take a look. I'm not saying that we have to completely leave this universe.
I feel like heaven is a place where you can watch all these films.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
That's how I choose to believe. Did either of you catch the Close Encounters reference in this film?
No, was it music related?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. The keypad entry?
Yeah. Do 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 do.
Tom Mankiewicz worked on a script outline that was mostly discarded. Some elements of this were actually used in subsequent films. The keel hauling scene would be used in For Your Eyes Only. The jet sequence would be used in the pre-title sequence for Octopussy, and the Eiffel Tower scene would be used in A View to a Kill. Christopher Wood, who had co-written The Spy Who Loved Me, he ended up as the sole credited screenwriter. Now, the screenplay was so much different than the novel that Eon asked Wood to write a novelization. It was titled James Bond and Moonraker to avoid confusion with the original novel. And it's pretty similar to what we actually see in the film, but there are some elements that are different that hopefully I remember to point them out as we get into our discussion. This was also the film where Cubby Broccoli's stepson, Michael Wilson, began to get involved in the series. His name appears in the title sequence of this film, and of course, he is still running the series to this day with his stepsister, Barbara. Roger Moore had to be re-signed to appear in this film because he originally was only given a 3-film contract. And from this point onwards, he would be contracted on a film-by-film basis.
So James Mason, who was sought to play Carl Stromberg in the previous film, was originally going to play Hugo Drax. However, once this film became an Anglo-French co-production, the role ended up going to Michael Lonsdale, as the agreement stipulated that a certain percentage of the cast had to be made up of French actors. Stuart Granger and Louis Jordan were also considered for Drax. Jordan would end up playing the villain Kamal Khan in Octopussy. Jacqueline Smith was originally offered the role of Holly Goodhead, but had to turn it down owing to scheduling conflicts with Charlie's Angels. Lois Chiles was cast as Holly Goodhead by chance. She was given the seat next to Lewis Gilbert on a flight, and he believed she would be ideal for the role as a CIA scientist. Remember that she had previously been offered the role for Anya in The Spy Who Loved Me.
You sure about that?
Say
You
it with
said
your
that with
chest.
such confidence.
Say it with your chest.
The Spy Who Loved Me.
The Spy Who Loved Me?
Question mark?
The production sought Industrial Light and Magic to create the visual effects, but the film asked for 2% of the film's profit. So they decided to do all the effects in-house. Derek Meddings and his team received an Academy Award nomination for their work.
Quick sidebar for you, Anton. Derek Meddings, the year before this, won an Academy Award for his visual effects works on Superman.
Very impressive. Because of Britain's high tax rates, filming was primarily done in France. The sound stages of our good friends at Pinewood Studios in England, traditionally used for the series, were only used by the special effects team. The massive sets designed by Ken Adam were the largest ever constructed in France. This film is also the last time Ken Adam would be involved in the series. He would be very much missed going forward. Production began with a loose budget in place. Broccoli's original estimate to UA was that it would cost $18 million. The studio eventually approached up to $28 million, but it quickly grew to $34 million, more than double than that of The Spy Who Loved Me. It was one of the most expensive films ever made at the time. Filming began in August 1978, mostly taking place in Paris. Additional shooting took place in London, Venice, Palmdale, California, Port St. Lucie, Florida, and Rio de Janeiro.
The pre-title sequence in which Jaws pushes Bond out of the aircraft without a parachute took weeks of planning and preparation. The entire sequence was coordinated by Don Calvette under the supervision of 2nd Unit Director John Glenn, and it was shot above Lake Berryessa in Northern California. The scene took a total of 88 skydives by the stuntmen to be completed. All of the Space Center scenes were shot at the Vehicle Assembly Building in Kennedy Space Center, Florida. The exterior of Drax's Pyramid headquarters in the Amazon rainforest near the falls was actually filmed in Guatemala at the Tikal Mayan ruins. That's the same location that was used for the Moon Yavin 4 in Star Wars. And after 22 weeks, shooting finally wrapped in January 1979. The film's release was actually originally supposed to coincide with the launch of the brand new NASA space shuttle, but that ended up being delayed until 1981. The climactic scenes of the space station disintegrating were created by Meddings and the other members of the effects team by shooting the miniature model with shotguns. I thought that was kind of cool. John Barry was back to compose the score. At one point, Frank Sinatra was in talks to sing the title song. Johnny Mathis was even approached. However, Mathis, despite having started recording with John Barry, was unable to complete the project, and Shirley Bassey recorded the song just weeks before the film's release. It would be her third and final title song.
Iconic.
I'm not a fan of this song, but she's iconic.
I'm a big fan. I like it a lot.
I don't know what the lyrics have to do with space, but
I think maybe it is because of Bassey that I'm really into it, but it's also just, I don't know, fun memories for the film.
I like the melody, which is used, prominently throughout the film in the score, but By the way, I don't know if either of you got a chance to look at this, but this is like one of the coolest movie posters in the entire series.
Oh,
Really
of
awesome.
course.
I really miss movie posters like this where it's just artwork and it's not just a bunch of Photoshop crap. And of course, we got the trading cards. Yes, folks, this film has its own trading cards. They're not very expensive if you want to pick some up on eBay. Not a big market for Moonraker trading cards, apparently.
If you wanted
I was
a
like, I'm not
PSA,
surprised.
if you wanted a, there's no PSA 10s of any of the Moonraker cards. The highest grade, there's a PSA 8.
Okay.
And
I
that,
don't think people were
yeah,
taking great care of these when they came out.
I
no.
wonder if there was a competitive Moonraker TCG scene at any point.
I mean, there has to be
Probably not.
a competitive Greater Universe James Bond TCG. One would hope.
I also wanted to highlight, I think people take some movie titles for granted. Moonraker is just a cool name in general. I always loved the name, like Moonraker. It just sounds cool. Most of the Bond titles are cool, except for Spectre or Quantum of Solace.
Hey, I like those names.
You like Spectre?
I do.
Okay. Yeah, not a fan. Yeah, critical reception for this, pretty mixed. It has a 60% Rotten Tomato score, so not fantastic. Before we talk about why this wasn't better, we will take an ad break. Today's podcast is brought to you by Sprizzy. Looking to skyrocket your YouTube channel's growth? Meet Sprizzy, your video's ultimate matchmaker. Their tailored ad campaigns connect your content with viewers who are already looking for videos like yours. With Sprizzy, you're not just getting views, you're gaining subscribers who are genuinely interested in what you create. Are you ready to boost your reach? Visit Sprizzy.com today and let's launch your channel to new heights. Sprizzy, the smarter way to promote your YouTube channel. All right. This is going to be a really fun discussion round. I can tell. Number one reason, the lack of originality. This is just an unabashed remake of The Spy Who Loved Me. It's the ultimate, most egregious example of the James Bond series chasing trends. Like, this wasn't even supposed to be made until they saw Star Wars and they were like, wait a minute, let's try to get on board this gravy train.
We've touched on this before. Let's kind of name a few instances where James Bond has kind of chased some trends. We talked Kung Fu craze.
Yeah, it started, I think, with Live and Let Die.
Blaxploitation.
Mm-hmm.
Kung Fu craze. Space.
License to Kill absolutely tried to capitalize on the Miami Vice cowboy cop trope that was really big in the 80s.
Die Another Day that tried to capitalize on Madonna.
Yeah.
No, not her. Actually, no, that was not the heyday of Madonna.
Was that her era where she was talking with a British accent? I've always loved living in London, you know.
This was fake British accent Kabbalah Madonna.
Yeah, she had phases. Born Catholic, then she became a whore for a while, but actually converted to Judaism. Maybe the worst example of it was Spectre, though, where they were trying to MCU the whole Bond series and retcon everything. Yeah. It was stupid.
And then of course you also had in No Time to Die, they're trying to capitalize on Bacardi commercials.
The Cuban sequence.
Yeah.
Kai, you were going to say something?
I was going to say the MCU like unification of the Craig movies was just unnecessary.
Didn't have to do it.
No Time to Die's biggest crime was we only got like 5 minutes of Ana de Armas.
In the Bacardi commercial.
Yeah. They have a scene where they cheers and they keep doing their thing.
I completely agree. She wasn't in it. I was bummed out. I was like, is she going to come back? No?
Nope.
Yeah, but Moonraker is it's definitely the most ridiculous example of chasing trends. They really pushed the boundaries of the traditional Bond formula here. Or did they? Anton, we talked about this on a lot of the previous Bond episodes about what the formula is. The traditional formula is here.
Yeah. It's not pushing the template. It's fitting into the template.
It is. It does. As ridiculous as the plot is, it does fit the traditional template. He gets a mission. He goes on a mission. He uses gadgets, probably too many gadgets in the case of this film. Meets sexy women. He fights some crazy villains. It's like a lot of other Bond movies, except he goes to space.
Goes to exotic locales.
Yes. I noticed in the credits that they actually credit outer space as one of the filming locations. There's an explanation point. It's like filmed in Venice, Rio, and outer space.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think they did film in space, though. I'm going to dispute that.
No, that was only Stanley Kubrick.
Right. I mean, you can't argue the results. Whether or not you like this film, it did gangbusters at the box office. It was actually the highest grossing film of 1979 internationally.
Internationally, right?
Internationally, yeah.
Yeah, because in the US, of course, we know that the highest grossing film was a very grounded film about divorce, Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah. It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
I think
Nuts.
Rocky 2 probably made more money than this in the US, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kramer versus Kramer. I was pretty surprised to see that.
Yeah, they're not.
Unadjusted for inflation, this was the highest grossing film in the entire Bond series at the time.
It's amazing, and it kind of shows with the popularity and staying power. You can look at this and say this is ridiculous, but dang, did it make money? And dang, is it still really popular?
It is. And I'll say this. I don't think this is nearly as good as The Spy Who Loved Me, and it's ripping off The Spy Who Loved Me. It's ripping off You Only Live Twice. But I do think the villain in this film is an improvement over The Spy Who Loved Me. I really like Michael Lonsdale as Drax.
I agree with you. I think, of course, the writers and just everyone involved is kind of working with one arm behind their back because they can't really work with Spectre anymore. You can't really have the same villain anymore.
Right.
So it's how do we kind of use that same flavor, but then get a little creative with it, which I think like actually has been a positive for the series because it didn't really have to hit like the same note every time.
I like the villains. Well, I like Adolf Draxler's. I like his motivations. I think he was written during an age when villains were just like, "Oh, I want to take over the world," or "Oh, I want to have more money," or something. I think his take that humanity is doomed and that he has to start over is actually like it's a pretty three-dimensional motivation to have, and I found it pretty interesting. Plus, he has some solid one-liners.
Some great one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
He's really dry and like low energy, but I like the actor. I've seen him in a lot of other stuff. He's the co-protagonist in one of my all-time favorite films called The Day of the Jackal.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best films of the 70s, and it's one of my favorites. And he plays like the hero in that film. He plays a police inspector. So he's done all different types of roles. He's passed away, I'd say a little bit more recently. If either of you have seen Munich, he has a pretty good supporting role in Munich, the Spielberg film. Yeah, Kai, you're right about the one-liners. Look after Mr. Bond, see that some harm comes to him. That's really good.
That's a good quote.
I think my favorite is the one he says at the end when he says, "I've been looking forward to putting you out of my misery."
Is that right? Is that right before he gets shot by the dart?
Yes, it is.
And then it just gets
he gets ejected into space and turns into a doll.
the way that he's just spinning. It's so funny.
I mean, it's giving Xenomorph spinning into space at the end of the movie vibes.
I like his like the acting he's doing as he's getting ejected. He's like just floats away. It's so great. That's one of the better death scenes in the series.
Quick note about the darts. Why, with the new Seiko endorsement, did they not try to incorporate that into his watch somehow? I think that would have made the gadget like a million times cooler.
I would imagine Seiko would not be okay with that.
Yeah, that's not a feature they want.
Our watches can kill people.
I'm glad you brought that up because there is a deleted scene in Casino Royale where Bond actually takes off his Omega to use as like a knuckle duster and a weapon at the end of the film, and Omega saw it and they were like, absolutely not, take that out of the film.
But they had in No Time to Die, his watch blows up.
That's also true.
Your watch blew his mind. That's a cold line too, actually, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's okay. And of course, I have down the line here that I said to you guys the other day on the Romulus recording. James Bond, you appear with the tedious inevitability of an unloved season.
Such a fun line.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Even in death, my munificence is boundless. So great. He has a whole bunch of other stuff. Like I like remember when he's on the phone and he's like, regarding a replacement for Cha, he's like, well, if you can get him, and then it just cuts to like Jaws walking through the airport.
It's just so fun because as villains go, would you say it's a pretty over the top performance?
No, I think that's why I like it. He's pretty low energy. He's not hamming it up.
I actually think it's very subdued but still over the top, if that makes sense.
I know what you're saying. Like the whole concept of the movie is over the top, but I think he sells it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works because his subduedness just conveys confidence. And I mean, like, if it wasn't for a couple of coincidences, his plan would have worked.
It's
right?
it's one of the examples where you find the right actor to be able to kind of sell how subdued but like how crazy megamaniacal this villain is. They made a really good decision because otherwise I feel like this could have been definitely played a bit more Dr. Evil, which I think traditionally like people would think of a villain in that kind of particular role, but Hugo Drax is definitely a bit more subdued.
Talk about ruthless. I mean, firing a woman and then having her eaten by dogs.
Also, why did she not run to the cart and then drive away?
Good question.
She
Yeah, I
saw
don't
the dogs
know.
and said, "Into the woods where I'll be most vulnerable."
Yeah, it's like
So
running.
so fired and then eaten by dogs, is that like, are we one step away from that for like typical corporate packages?
I guess it depends how high up the ladder you are.
I think it was just so cruel to fire her first. Like, I would have, I mean, I felt bad for her either way, but if he had just had her eaten by dogs, it would have been bad. But the fact that she's running away, knowing that she is now unemployed, it's just terrible. And that is one scene in the film where that does not fit in with the rest of the film at all. It's like I always like forget about that scene every time I watch this movie. I'm like, wow, this is like it's like something out of a horror movie.
I
Yeah, it's
mean,
the whole movie is like somewhat goofy up to that point, and then it's like yeah, like you're right. It's like a horror movie scene.
It's
I'm
even filmed like a horror movie.
I'm sure if we could ask her, what hurt more, getting fired or eaten by dogs?
I think that's a pretty easy choice.
Yeah,
She really seemed to love her job as a
she
helicopter
really
pilot.
loved her. She really
Yeah,
loved her job.
Can I say something about Roger Moore for a second?
Please.
of course.
I've seen a number of Bond films now. Craig, Brosnan, Connery, now Moore. I just don't buy Moore as James Bond. And like every time I watch one of his movies and then like he meets a woman and within 5 minutes he's fucking her, I'm like, how?
That's James Bond, buddy.
I know what Kai means because you don't get that with Connery. You like women. You get a sense that women really want Connery.
100%. With Roger Moore, I'm like, he looks like a dad when he's like wearing a suit.
Oh, it's really funny too if you see these films in 4K because you can really see like, oh, he's getting a bit older. He's getting up
No,
there.
no, I mean my man looks 50 in this movie, and I'm like, I just don't see
Well,
it.
he
Man.
was 50.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, no, but wait, like if you watch like A View to a Kill, it's like, oh, it's too much.
Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable submarine scene.
Oh yeah, that's pretty gross. Or you remember the scene at the racetrack, Anton? It's like he's with elderly Moneypenny, elderly M. It looks like a scene from like Murder She Wrote.
Right.
It's too much.
Yeah, they need a little bit of a jump start there.
Oh, that film is going to be so fun to talk about, though. Kai, I just letting you know, like when you finally get to A View to a Kill, there's not one but two blimps in the movie.
well, I didn't even know there was a blimp in the movie, so
Oh
now
yeah,
I know.
yep. They're both driven by Christopher Walken. Just like there's two boat chases in this film for whatever reason. They felt the
You
need
know
to have
what?
two boat chases.
That was an odd choice, to be honest. I feel like the second boat chase was entirely unnecessary.
I'm going to make the case a little bit later that a bunch of the action sequences in this film are entirely unnecessary.
Fair.
Back to Drax and his plan. Clearly kind of a genius, right? Because he obviously was able to almost execute on all of this. It's very impressive. The novelization actually reveals a little bit more about how he's getting to do this. So he is basically subsidizing the United States space program, which they don't really mention in the film, but I think that's like worth pointing out. That's how he's able to have this kind of access. They're like, well, how could some guy build a space shuttle? That would have been unheard of in 1979. I think it's somewhat ahead of its time because the privatization of space exploration is now a common thing in 2025,
Yeah,
2024.
heck, Elon Musk is literally trying to populate the world right now. Like it is not that is not much of an exaggeration.
He's trying to do the opposite of Hugo Drax.
He's trying to repopulate the world himself.
Yes. Yes. Now, Drax in this film, this is why I like him more than Stromberg in The Spy Who Loved Me. I feel like he put a lot more thought into his plan. So he's willing to exterminate billions of people, right? But he also has a plan to repopulate it. And I think it more or less makes sense, but it's like all the people have a reason to be there. He seems to like only hot people, right?
Mhm.
My man.
Man, he's not racist because he has all the races there, it looks like.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
he's-
pretty stand up.
right. He's willing to commit mass murder, but he's not racist.
Good.
But I have a question. What was his plan to get rid of the billions of bodies? I don't think those people were doing any heavy lifting.
It's a good question.
They all look like models. They're gonna get down there and be like, ew. Like,
Yeah,
Well,
no.
no. Well, no. Actually, I think he says that they're not going down there, but their children are going back down. Because
Same
I think,
thing. Same
well,
difference, though.
well, by the time their children get down there, like the bodies will be decomposed.
It'd be pretty gruesome.
It would.
That would be pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
It would actually be like going from heaven straight into hell.
Or
Kinda,
it might
yeah.
be it might
Good
be a bit of
point.
it might be a bit of an Eden with if it's been a long time, I would imagine a lot of greenery has kind of returned. So probably a lot
How
of luscious
long?
green around the world.
How long do they plan on staying in that space station though? Like they're gonna run out of food at a certain point, right?
Nah, he built a Death Star.
Mhm.
They're staying there for a while.
It's not that big though. I don't know.
No,
I feel like we're putting more thought into this than they did when they wrote the film.
he seems like a guy that knows how to efficiently create like dense nutrients in food.
That's fair. Maybe he has like a replicator from Star Trek.
You can see
He's
that.
invented that technology. Very possible. So he's a genius. We can agree on that. I think he's also kind of a dumbass.
Oh,
Hear
what
me
gave
out.
that away?
Hear me out. He's presumably like days away from executing this plan, right? No one was going to stop him except for James Bond and Holly Goodhead, right? But if you think about it, Bond gets there to what we know to be Southern California and in no way France, right? In the beginning of the film, he's there to investigate. Bond has no evidence on him at all. And all Drax has to do is nothing, and he immediately just tries to kill James Bond. And as we know, when you try to kill James Bond, he's gonna start poking around more. He's gonna start to pull at the thread. But Drax tries to kill him multiple times. We're gonna get into the different methods that he tries to kill him with later. But even when he's staying at his house, right, he tries to kill him with the gravity stimulator, and then he tries to stage a hunting accident, both of which fail.
Mm-hmm.
One of which leads to a great one-liner when he says, "You missed, Mr. Bond," and Roger Moore goes, "Did I?"
Yeah.
Pretty good.
It's a fun gag.
Right. Not how a shotgun works at all, but that's fine.
Mm.
Kai, I was thinking about this. You got to think he's using birdshot, right?
Yeah, that guy might have had some scratches, but he wouldn't have died and fallen out.
No. And I just want to reiterate that everyone is wearing English tweed hunting gear, and it's supposed to be Southern California.
He
Yeah.
just wanted to role play.
They imported like pheasants from France or whatever they're hunting. It looked like pheasants, right?
I think they were.
Number 2 reason why this wasn't better, the tone.
Mm.
As we know, Cubby Broccoli said, it's not science fiction, it's science fact. Anton, how would you describe the tone of this film?
The tone of this film is a little outlandish. Is that fair?
I think outlandish is putting it mildly.
Yeah. I have Looney Tunes written down.
Yeah, that's there. I agree with that. The only thing I wouldn't describe it as is grounded.
I agree with that. It's not grounded. I think the reason why it's watchable for me, though, is they keep it very consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like movies that really struggle with tone, where there's serious moments and goofy moments. They don't really go together, and I think that's something that the series would struggle with during the Brosnan era and the Craig era. And I would say, with the exception of Corinne being eaten by the dogs, this film is just goofy from start to finish.
100%.
Yeah, goofy and entertaining. It's definitely one of those kinds of films where you can just leave your logic cap at the door and just enjoy.
I would say the lift scene where he fights Jaws, that was like straight out of like a cartoon.
Oh, with Jaws is like jump.
Yeah. And then they jump into the grass, start trying to have sex, and then someone bonks him on the head immediately and knocks him out.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's the worst part of the film.
It's nonsensical.
Yeah.
No.
Just
Jaws' plan is like, just in case I can't get him on the cable car, have this fake ambulance team ready to go on the ground. Did you notice too, the guy that was running the cable car operations for Jaws, he looked like a cartoon character. The bald guy.
Just an incompetent henchman.
Yeah.
Elmer Fudd over there.
He reminded me of Otis from Superman, Anton.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Mr. Luthor.
Yeah. Is fun another fun henchman.
And yeah, Anton, I still don't think this is as goofy as Diamonds Are Forever.
That is, if this is outlandish, that literally is like in another galaxy. Come on now.
Yeah, Kai, wait till you get to that one. I don't think this is the goofiest in the series.
That's saying a lot.
And they don't go to outer space in that one, but I don't even want to spoil any of it for you.
All right.
That's Connery's last official film. Connery is in complete checked out mode, doesn't give two shits about anything, and it's hilarious.
Yep. Scorpion deaths.
There is a scorpion death.
There's a skewer death.
There is a skewer death. There is someone. I'll spoil one thing for you, Kai. In addition to what we just spoiled, someone gets killed by being drowned in what is amounts to mashed potatoes.
What if I told you, Kai, that Jimmy Dean sausages is related to this film.
Yep. Yeah, you know
Not
Jimmy
even.
Dean sausage, right?
I do.
Okay. Have you ever seen the old Jimmy Dean commercials where it's actually the singer Jimmy Dean talking about like, yeah, we put my name on these sausages and I just decided to. He's a character in the film.
Interesting product placement.
Yeah, but I think this was before the sausages even came out, Anton. I
Yeah,
think he was just a country singer at this point.
yeah, he was just an entertainer.
Kai's like, all right, I'm interested. All right, back to Moonraker. The character of Cha, or Chang as he's credited, but they call him both things in the film. I love how disappointed he is when he fails to kill Bond in the gravity trainer. Like the look on his face, he's so bummed out when Bond uses the wrist dart gun. I actually felt bad for him.
Well, that's an example of a limited amount of time to really make an impact on the audience and totally sold it. There's a few of those there's a handful of those.
Besides being like a racist caricature of like an Asian person back then, why did they give him that fucking bowl cut?
I mean, you just said it, Kai. I thought the bowl cut was a stereotypical one of the hallmarks of that look.
But didn't the Beatles make it popular?
I think so.
The funny thing is, if we reference "You Only Live Twice," where it takes place in Japan, no one has that haircut until James Bond, pretending to be an Asian person, suddenly gets given a bowl cut.
That's true.
I don't know why Google just did that, but all I typed in was bowl cut, and literally the first search suggestion was bowl cut Asian. So I don't.
Anton, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is one thing in this film that James Bond desperately needed in almost every scene, but just doesn't appear to have? And it's a total outlier for the series.
I feel like it's just something that's very obvious.
His gun.
Oh, that is so true.
As far as I can tell, this is the only film in the series where he doesn't use a gun. He doesn't appear to have a gun, and it's pretty stupid because he gets into a lot of situations in this film where a gun would really solve the problems for him.
Mm-hmm.
Where's his PPK?
I feel like it could be one of those instances of if he had his gun, this movie would be a lot shorter. So let's not give him one.
Yeah.
Speaking of being under-equipped, why when Cha tries to kill Bond in one of the scenes does he use a fucking training sword that's basically a wooden stick instead of an actual sword, which he could have gotten a couple feet away in a room full of swords,
or a gun?
Yeah, or a gun.
I don't know, Kai. That's another one which I'll just bring up now. It's like that action sequence is bizarre. Bond like chops his wooden sword thing in half, and then Cha just starts running from Bond. Like in some ways, maybe they were avoiding a bit of a stereotype, because if I was putting myself in the shoes of someone seeing this for his first time, like you, it's like you're expecting him to use martial arts at that point, right? You're like, well, obviously he's a karate master because he's going to be every other Asian stereotype, but it's like he doesn't do that. He just runs away.
It makes no sense.
No. I don't know. It's a really good question. It's a very bizarre way to try to assassinate someone. Just like a wooden staff.
Yeah.
But he has a fencing helmet on. Like he's expecting someone to have a fencing sword.
And then it's like, did he walk through town in that getup to ultimately ambush James at some point? It's just...
Oh, he didn't walk. He obviously took a gondola.
This was another instance where I feel like this was an anime. If we ever were looking at another Bond film that could have been an anime, I feel like Moonraker fits in the anime category.
It definitely does. The whole movie's a cartoon. It should actually be an awesome anime.
Oh, 100%.
This definitely would have worked better as an anime.
It's kind of the reverse of stuff we talk about before. Like trying to take anime and adopt it into live action is always risky because like a lot of times it just works way better when it's animated. This is the inverse of that, where like this film in live action, while I love it, is so goofy. It's like this actually would be better as an animated film in a way.
Now, if I was to hear about an adaptation of Moonraker as an anime, I would 100% be like, yes, please. I'd like to pre-order my 3 tickets for each screening I'm going to see in theaters. But right now, Hollywood is testing it out with a live action adaptation into anime with War of the Rohirrim. So we'll see how that goes.
I'll see it.
I'll see it too.
All right. Let's talk about Jaws. He's entertaining in this film, but I like him way more in The Spy Who Loved Me when he's just a straight up villain.
Yeah, when he's a bit more of a unstoppable force.
Yeah.
He was a menace in that movie.
He really was.
He's kind of he's kind of like an outlet for slapstick in this one.
And, of course, he ends up becoming an ally of Bond at the end, which was, again, entertaining.
An
On the
ally.
DVD commentary, the director, Lewis Gilbert, by the way, he has a hilarious accent, if you ever want to hear an accent. He sounds like this. He said, why can't Jaws be a goodie, not a baddie? And, they Broccoli had this idea early on that, like, Jaws could turn and be a good guy at the end, which is kind of unusual for the series. You don't really see that
To
for
be honest,
henchmen.
though, it was a good reason to turn.
It was. It was. Bond using his wits. It's a good thing that Drax allowed Jaws to bring a +1 on the space station.
Yeah, you never really see a henchman make any moves or be so pivotal to the plot, and this was a case that made sense.
Except in one other film, Anton.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's one other one, Kai. We won't tell you which one.
All right.
Yeah, but when it comes to the tone of this film, when Jaws meets the girl, who her name's Dolly. They don't say her name in the film, but that's how she's credited at the end. If you're not on board with Moonraker at that point, I feel like that's where you're probably going to turn the movie off.
Just in terms of what?
The music.
Just
I forget what classical piece that is, but yeah, you're like, whoa. Did either of you remember her having braces?
I know that this is one of those Mandela effect things.
It is.
So I've seen the clip in like as a GIF many times where like they smile at each other. I always remembered her as having braces, but when I watched it again, she doesn't have it, and I was like, "Well, that was weird."
This might get cut. I don't remember her being so stacked.
I'm leaving that in.
Great.
Yeah, she's one of it's not a controversial thing to say, Anton. Yeah. She's one of the most attractive women in the movie.
I was shocked.
Everyone else was stacked. Why couldn't she?
Yeah.
That's
why Drax led her on the space station, obviously.
Just one look. Fine, yeah. She can come on.
It's like, all right, Jules. I've taken a look and I've decided. So when I first saw this movie as a kid, when Jaws is walking up in that alley in that clown costume, freaked me out. Kind of freaked me out now as an adult.
It did have horror movie vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine seeing that in real life, like a clown costume comes up to you and it's 8 feet tall. They use him more for comic relief in this film, and it just doesn't work as well for me. Like during the second boat chase, when he's about to go over the falls, when he like accidentally pulls the steering wheel off the boat, the look on his face, that was also a point where my wife was like questioning the film. She was like, what is, she's like, this is a Bond movie? I'm like, yes, this is a classic.
Yeah, I just looked this up just because, one, I always find it really interesting to think of where there's different intersections of larger than life people as like henchmen in the Bond films. You get a lot of WWE wrestlers, kind of people with bigger frames. You get The Rock's grandfather, right? He was in You Only Live Twice.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that I feel like can fit like the similar frame of like a henchman, larger than life, actually officially also taller than Jaws, Andre the Giant.
He could have. Yeah.
And I feel like also could have taken a very lovable turn from unstoppable henchman to falling in love and supporting Bond.
Yeah, he would have been a great choice for it because he basically played that role in Princess Bride.
Yeah.
By the way, is it ever clear if Jaws and Dolly just died at the end? Like they
were saved.
They get rescued.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, which is, I have questions about the validity of how they managed to survive re-entry, but hey,
Because I was going to say, if they flew back into the atmosphere, first they'd probably burn, second they'd probably land maybe in water, and then it would crush them, but...
Yeah. I like how Bond tries to explain they'll be okay. He's like, don't worry, they'll make it. It's only 100 miles to Earth. It's like, I don't know if that's how it works.
When did you become a physicist, Bond?
I was going to say, he just did
everything. He's a know-it-all in this movie. I love it. When he knows the name of that random orchid.
Oh, yeah.
What the
No, he's doing napkin math all the time.
That's Bond for you, though. I mean, he always knows random facts. Like, which one was it, Anton? In On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he knows the scientific name of that butterfly that M's framing in his house. It's like, come on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd say this film definitely starts to take a turn when he gets to Venice.
The gondola race.
Yeah, the gondola race. All right, it's time to talk about this. Is this the film where it's the most convoluted ways that a villain tries to kill Bond? It has to be, right?
It's definitely some of the most unconventional ways we've seen.
It's like Drax is trying to build like a Rube Goldberg of like ways to kill Bond without ever using a bullet.
It makes for phenomenal movie watching. But let's go through it. And this goes back to the pre-title sequence, right? So the pilot, he just shoots the gauge clusters of the plane, which would not crash a plane. He could have just shot Bond, but no, can't do that. Jaws then shoves Bond out of the plane, which you have to admit should work. If you get pushed out of a plane without a parachute, you don't have great chances there.
Where was he hiding that whole time? Because they didn't show him in the plane.
It's a really good question. I guess he was in the bathroom, but here's the crazy part. In the novelization, Jaws is not on the plane.
So who pushes him?
He's fighting with the pilot, and they just get knocked out, which makes way more sense. And if you think about it, yeah, you're right, Anta. It doesn't make sense for Jaws to be in the pre-title sequence because he's not working for Drax at that point.
Yeah, that was a bit of the director immediately saying, "We want you to know Jaws is in this."
I mean, maybe going after Bond is just his hobby.
Could be. Okay, and then so Bond goes to, which is in no way France, he goes to Los Angeles. Chang tries to kill him by staging a gravity simulation accident, which I admit probably should work. Little does he know Bond has wrist dart gun.
Yep, it's a very important wrist dart gun.
Right, which I have questions about the logistics of wrist dart gun. Like, how would it not go off when you went to shake someone's hand? Like, nice to meet you.
There's a safety. There's always has to be a safety.
Is there? He says it's activated by nerve impulses or whatever.
Like Spider-Man.
It seems flawed. They then attempt to stage a hunting accident, but they made the mistake of giving Bond his own gun. Stupid. And then I think my favorite one is when he gets to Venice. He's traveling in a slow-moving gondola with his friend Franco, and we get the boat hearse with no knife thrower guy.
He came out of that like the Undertaker.
It opens slow, and he just like
gets out of there.
But then here's the crazy part. So that doesn't work because he throws a knife at Bond, who just throws it right back to him and kills him. And then there's apparently a backup plan involving a speedboat with MP-40 submachine guns, which seems more effective than knife thrower guy. But little do they know Bond has a special gondola.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kai's favorite, which is Bond tries to visit the lab, and Chang tries to kill him with a wooden samurai training sword kendo stick thing. Doesn't work. Bond throws him out of the window, and he lands on the piano. I have to wonder, like, Bond could have used wrist dart gun there. That would have saved some time.
Was that before or after he had sex with Goodhead?
Right before.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Yeah. Damn. Honestly, Bond is a dog.
He is a dog.
Only he could kill a guy and then like 30 minutes later go have sex with someone.
Oh, let me mention this now. Did you notice when he confronts her in the hotel room, there's like a crazy jump scare from like a horror movie? He's like, what is this doing in the movie?
Very different tone.
Bizarre. Okay, now we get to Rio, right? So Jaws like sort of stalks Bond and Manuela, right, in the alleyway. That doesn't go as planned because once again, Bond could have used a gun or wrist dart gun, but thankfully Jaws is foiled by drunken partygoers and just gives up and decides to go party with them.
It was so silly. Oh my gosh.
I like when Jaws just gives up and he's just like...
Yeah, he's just into it. Like you said, it is just... This movie knows what it is.
It does. Then we get to the cable car sequence, right? This also fails. Again, not really sure what Jaws' plan was there.
Also, if he bit the wire, wouldn't the string just have snapped and the car just have fallen?
You would think. It just kind of like stops the cable car. And then we have the backup plan involving Drax's people impersonating paramedics because they just, I guess, needed to kidnap Holly Goodhead. There's no other reason for that scene to exist. Oh, and to show some billboards because you have to crash into a British Airways billboard. Or was that Avis? Or what was the billboard that the guy crashes into on the stretcher?
I think it was a rental car one. I think you're right.
It was like Hertz or something.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Another sponsor.
Yeah, we in that like 10 minutes alone, we had 7-Up, Marlboro, I think. Seiko. Yeah.
British Airways.
Yeah.
I think Dior or something. Dior might have been in the film. Okay, so Bond gets out of that, right? Then we get Bond in the Amazon, right, involving a pretty elaborate boat chase with guns and mortars. That's a better way to try to kill someone, right? Instead of a cable car saying you have guns.
Fair.
but Bond has his own badass speedboat. And that speedboat is really cool. It's a really cool looking speedboat.
Does it have an official name in the Bond lore?
I don't know. I know it's a real company. It's a Glaston.
Yeah.
It's a real company. It was a real speedboat I think you could buy. I don't think it came with torpedoes and mines, but you could buy one. Okay, then Bond gets to Drax's Aztec lair, and then we get the Python, right? Pretty elaborate way to kill someone. Fortunately, Bond held on to Holly Goodhead's poison pen the entire time. He just had that in his pocket. Came in handy. Also could have used wrist dart gun. And I have questions about that because he has wrist dart gun on the space station, but he apparently doesn't have it when he's fighting the Python. Maybe it's not waterproof.
It has to be the right moment. Remember, this is Chekhov's wrist dart gun.
Then Drax tries to incinerate Bond and Dr. Goodhead with the shuttle exhaust, which you would think would work. But fortunately, he has an explosive thing in his Seiko wristwatch, and they crawl like 30 feet away in the vent, and they're fine.
And somehow they sneak onto the shuttle, and no one notices.
No one notices.
Yeah.
Not at all related to impersonating stormtroopers on the Death Star.
Even when they get onto the space station, no one notices.
Well, they're hot.
No, that's fair.
Everyone else is hot. If they were ugly, they would have stood out.
It's crazy Drax didn't stand out.
No. Well, it's interesting you say that. Space Hitler. Did you notice too in the Venice scene where they try to confront him in the lab, and obviously the lab has been moved out, and it's just like Drax chilling in this like beautiful room. He's dressed like a Nazi.
Oh, for sure.
He's got like the pin on and everything. I thought that was like really, really obvious on their part.
Man had the all black Hugo Boss fit.
Yeah. Pretty bold. He was wearing a 3-piece double-breasted suit, which is like super uncommon.
I like to think one of the models just going along with the plan after a few days on the station is just like, are we the bad guys?
The bad guys. What happened to all the people? And then, okay, last but not least, they sneak onto Drax's space station, and instead of just shooting them with lasers, Drax orders Jaws to expel them. And then Bond uses his superior intellect to overcome the odds and get Jaws to switch sides. And then Drax tries to pick up a laser later on, but Bond has wrist dart gun.
He rolled a 20 in speech.
My point is, Drax kind of sucks. Let me just add this up. I'm not going to count the pre-title sequence because that wasn't. Python is 10. The shuttle exhaust is 11. The expel thing would be 12. He has he tries to kill Bond 13 times.
With very elaborate methods.
Right.
It's
thus
also like
making him one of the least effective villains in the series.
It's also like he's like allergic to using a gun.
Until it's too late. He tries to pick up that laser gun and Bond's like, I have a wrist dart gun, buddy. What does he say to him? Heartbroken, Mr. Drax? That was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll say this about Roger Moore. He's really good at delivering one-liners.
Amazing.
Really good at that.
Excellent comedic timing. Keeping with the tone, Dr. Goodhead, they weren't even trying at this point.
If there was ever a double entendre, I mean, that's probably up there in the Rushmores of great Bond women names.
They had the good sense to not even make any jokes about it. Like they just had to drop the name. I like when when Bond finally meets her and he's like, a woman. Such a dick. What do we think of her?
I don't think the actress who plays her is a good actress.
No.
I don't know if it's just me, but it felt very much like she was just reciting lines, and there's very few times where I feel like she actually feels what she's trying to convey.
I like the character because she's a really strong female character. She's a badass. She's a scientist. She's an astronaut. She's a pilot. She can do karate. I mean, she's a great character. She essentially is driving the final act of the film because Bond doesn't know how to fly a shuttle like she does.
Yeah, she's also CIA, I think.
She is CIA. You're right.
Yeah, she's one of the best female scientists in the series, next to Christmas Jones,
the nuclear physicist.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Kai, on her. I don't know if it's her acting or like really bad ADR. Every single line of hers, it's the same flat emotion that something must have gone wrong with the controls. Your powers of observation to your credit, Mr. Bond. Very, very flat, monotone. Corinne, she's lovely.
Really fun.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Should have gotten back on that golf cart.
She wasn't a very good employee, though.
No.
Within 5 minutes, she betrays her employer and just gives up all the secrets for some dick.
Yeah. Yep. Good thing Bond had the little camera with his number on it, too. It's like all the 00s get their own camera. Best line in the film, I think we all know what it is. It's at the very end. My God, what's Bond doing? I think he's attempting re-entry, sir.
It's funny.
Straight up popcorn entertainment.
Back to the camera thing. I think if I was Drax and I realized someone saw my plans, I would have to guarantee that they die like within the next couple hours at least.
Yeah.
I would never have let him leave my property.
He lets him walk away. He lets
Yeah,
him get in the car and leave. He's just
yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, Drax was definitely making some moves that look a little complacent, look a little lazy. I also like the idea of Drax wanting to only have very attractive people around him, and it's just an unspoken rule of like no one's gonna say that he's ugly, right? Very emperor's new clothes kind of thing.
Except for Chang.
Yeah.
Do you think he would have taken Chang on the space station?
I'd hope so.
He takes Jaws. So I
Somehow-
was thinking about this. If he gets Jaws to replace Chang, if you notice early in the film, Chang is like serving him tea. He's like, would Jaws have done that too? I can't
think
picture Jaws doing that.
I think he was supposed to because remember when he betrays him, he's like, "Jaws, you obey me." So I think
Yeah.
Jaws would have done it.
Jaws, expel them. It's the only time he gets mad. Expel them. His munificence is boundless. All right, number 3 reason why this wasn't better. This movie's bloated.
Yeah.
Way too long.
A little unnecessary.
It's too long.
Redundant in some parts.
Jaws did not need to be in the pre-title sequence.
Nope.
I think think about how much more effective it would be if you haven't seen him yet, and then Drax says that on the phone, like, well, if you can get him, and then you see Jaws in the airport, you've been like, yes.
Or you don't even show him in the airport. You show him in the alleyway for the first time.
Yes, that's even better. Great, that's great call, Kai. Where he takes off the clown thing, and you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I mentioned this earlier. The cable car sequence. It's funny, but I think it's completely unnecessary. Like, how would Jaws even know Bond would be there? He has this whole thing set up, just waiting for Bond. He's got the ambulance crew on standby. Like,
when it really comes down to it, it's funny that Jaws actually has more contingencies for Bond escaping than Drax does.
And then the definition of bloated in this film is like, we mentioned this before. There are 2 boat chases.
Just unnecessary.
We didn't need the first one, I think, especially because Cha tries to kill him like right after that.
Right. The space battle, it's pretty awesome to watch. And actually, I have seen this movie on the big screen, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's seeing it in high def. It is very impressive. I think being able to capture like large scenes like that isn't always easy, of course.
No, it's not. They do a great job with it. I don't like it more than the tanker battle from The Spy Who Loved Me, and it's not as cool as the Ninja Army battle.
Oh,
and
no,
You Only Live Twice. Like nothing's topping that.
That's peak.
Yeah, we talked about the product placement. It's pretty hilarious.
By the way, I gotta say something about the ninja thing. When Bond gets to the lair and then he sends that chick back with nothing but a bikini on, she has to walk like I think probably 20 miles on land and then swim to the base because she doesn't have anything on her.
It's a long swim too.
And to top it all off, once she gets everyone, she comes back.
Yeah.
Still in a bikini, I think.
Yeah. Well, obviously you have to keep her in that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's called commitment.
You're right, Kai. They play it fast and loose with the time, kind of like they do here, where apparently after collaborating with the Russians, the U.S. just has a space shuttle on standby with Space Marines, and it gets there in like 15 minutes. I think I read, speaking of science fact, it takes 24 hours to fuel a space shuttle launch, to get all the fuel in there. 24 hours. Makes sense, right? It's a shitload of gas.
It's a giant tank.
It's like liquid oxygen and stuff, so you have to keep it cold. And I don't think Cubby Broccoli was thinking about that, though. So speaking of the bloat, we mentioned a couple times how much money this made, but the budget got so out of control that going forward, there would be a mandate from United Artists to keep the spending under control. And Anton, as we get progressively into the 80s Bond movies, something I want you to pay attention to is how much cheaper they start to progressively look. Your favorite one, A View to a Kill, I know you like that movie. It looks a lot worse than this.
It is very, very true. But at the same time, I think that I still feel like, how do I put this? The cheesiness, even though it doesn't look as good, it's still very inventive and still very fun. I think they still make the most out of the set that they do have.
Oh, I agree with you on that. But
yeah.
You could really tell for the next 2 films, you're like, they didn't have as much money.
Well, that's why their decision, especially for that film, was like, I guess we'll be in Paris and then we'll be in San Francisco.
Yeah. What didn't help, too, is that in 1981, United Artists filed for bankruptcy. They had sunk a lot of money into a film called Heaven's Gate, and it doomed them, and MGM acquired them shortly after.
That is also on our list.
Heaven's Gate, yeah. Never seen it.
Neither have I, but my father-in-law suggested that film.
Well, we'll do it. All right, number 4 reason, let's talk about the production. This was Bernard Lee's final performance as M. He died in early 1981 from stomach cancer. It was before he could film any of his scenes for Your Eyes Only. I hate to say it, he was looking pretty bad here. He's very pale.
Mhm.
You could tell. It's a shame. And it's interesting too, Anton, because this is probably the film where he has the most screen time. He's pretty active in the plot late into the film.
Yeah,
That
no,
scene in Venice, that's the last thing he filmed for the series.
well, shouts out, huge respect for Bernard Lee.
We get Q relocating his lab once again for no reason other than to show off some cool stuff.
I just can't imagine how disruptive that would be to his workflow. Hey,
Not
get your
happy
shit.
about it.
Get your shit. We're going to Rio.
We're going to Rio for a 5-minute meeting with 007. And I've got something to get him there if 007 can handle it. Oh, Q in this film. You notice how fat his hands are? He has gigantic hands. I saw this on Twitter. There's an entire Twitter feed of just pictures of Q's hands, and they look like Hulk hands, like balloon hands. It's comical.
What is that? Just, what is it? Water? Is that water weight? Is that just
I don't know.
taking too much sodium?
I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
All right, we had John Barry back. The score is astounding.
Yeah. Fits perfectly.
I don't like the title song, but the melody is gorgeous. He uses it a lot throughout the film. The track called Flight into Space, where all the shuttles are traveling to the station, it's some of the best film music I've ever heard. It's stunning.
Yeah. I will say it was at this point, too, that I feel like they started to play a bit more with the gun barrel sequence. It looks a little different because, it gets distinctly more and more, I don't know, they play around with it.
I think this was the film where Moore filmed a new one. That's a good call out.
Yeah.
I have to say about John Barry, he won 5 Academy Awards for his work on film. He was never nominated for any of his scores on the Bond films, and it's just robbery.
We know what the Academy is more biased towards nominating, so.
Yeah.
Fake news.
Here's a travesty for you, Anton. Marvin Hamlish was nominated for his score on The Spy Who Loved Me, but Barry never got a nomination.
That is a travesty.
Yeah. Like, Kai, before I even shouted out the music to you, like when you were watching like the older Connery ones, was the music one of the first things that stood out to you?
Yeah, I'd say good music is always a hallmark of like James Bond movies for me.
I mean, it's no doubt how iconic the music of John Barry is. The Academy has done countless times where honoring the music of James Bond, live performances of the music, honoring John Barry. It's just a little too late not to have properly given the due for a proper nomination.
It's a great example of music really elevating the material. Like late in the film, when the space station's trashed and Jaws and Dolly find each other and they're like embracing in slow motion, it's probably the cheesiest thing in the film. And the score is so beautiful that it ends up being pretty touching.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, but it's because of Barry's music that it's so effective.
Mm-hmm.
And then they open the champagne and you're like, wow, I'm like really rooting for them as a couple right now. Like, I hope they make it.
It was really well written. How like you said, I was really rooting for them as a couple. Yeah, throughout. As goofy as it was, I really was rooting for them.
It's one of those things where like, this should not be this good. I'm just running through the stuff. I really like Moore's performance here. Like, it's really good acting from him. Like the gravity simulator scene, he's like genuinely shaken. You don't usually see Bond that vulnerable. He looks wiped out, and it's good acting from him. It's underrated stuff.
Yeah, good effects too, with like the skin on his face moving and stuff.
Yeah.
And how like he looks disheveled after.
Great locations, just really well filmed movie altogether, and the production design from Ken Adam. It's legendary stuff. This was his final contribution to the series. He goes out on top. It really is some of the best sets I've ever seen in any movie. Like the space station set, it's amazing. But all the other stuff, right? When they're in Venice, when they're in Drax's estate, any of the interiors, it's a set. And then my favorite one is probably the Aztec temple with the rocks and the pool and the Drax's control room with all like the monitors on the walls. It's supposed to look like Mondrian paintings. It's incredible stuff from Adam. And you can really see the influence in other films that his architecture had. Even if you go to something like animated films, like the first Incredibles movie, they based a lot of the set design in that film on Adam's work, and you can really tell. It's just
Mhm.
it's wonderful stuff to see on screen. The effects mostly hold up as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially seeing this film in high def, I think that it's just the budget really helped, and there was a nice investment in making this look good.
It got an Oscar nomination. It lost to Alien. I'm not going to complain about that, but there's a ton of effect shots in this film. Most of them look great.
Yeah, that double take pigeon.
Yes, that's the most effective one. Stunts were great, like the pre-title stuff, the skydiving. That's all great. The boat
That's
chase is good.
That's honestly a great sequence.
The skydiving scene?
Falling out and having to steal someone else's parachute. That's such a sick idea.
It looked very much like a modern day stunt from like a Mission Impossible film with Tom Cruise. It was really cool.
One of the things I think that separates Bond from a lot of other series is Bond did a lot of things first. I had never seen that in a film before, and I still don't think I did, where someone falls out of a plane and has to get a parachute from another person.
Great concept.
It had to be the first film to ever do that, and it's nothing crazy, right? It's like pretty simple, but very effective.
Very effective and great execution.
We mentioned M, Bernard Lee's last performance. Anton, this is the second appearance of two characters who would appear in every film all the way up to The Living Daylights. Walter Gotell as General Gogol and Jeffrey Keane as Defense Minister Frederick Gray.
Yep.
They will be in the next few films that we cover. All right, Kai, this one's for you. Bond's watch is a Seiko M354 5019 memory bank calendar. In 1979, it would have run you about $295. So that's like $1,200 today. And you can find them on eBay. They pop up, and they're not cheap.
It's a good choice for him. I just wish that, because it was a digital watch, I just think integrating a gadget into it would have worked really well.
Well, he had the little explosive thing in it.
That's true.
Is it as cool as a Rolex Submariner? No. Anton, what do you think of the wardrobe in this film? Because it's very 70s.
I think it still looked really good. I was very impressed all throughout, different sequences.
I like that gray silk suit he wears in Venice. And then anytime you get a safari jacket, I'm on board.
Yeah, a few looks are a little goofy.
The flared trousers.
The astronauts look like they're wearing garbage bags sometimes.
Say everything in space, a lot of chrome.
A lot of chrome. A lot of possibly aluminum foil used in some areas.
Yep, a lot of space pants.
Did the yellow jumpsuits remind anyone else of like Kill Bill?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not the most flattering outfits,
No, because it's a lot of jumpsuits.
Yeah.
They're not
it's
very
a lot
flattering.
of jumpsuits.
Another thing about the wardrobe, I love how Drax mandates that every single woman who works for him has to have like just their boobs out, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. He was willing to commit mass murder. He wasn't racist, but he was obviously sexist because he didn't seem to have a partner.
He was having lunch and stuff with like all those women when Bond first met him.
Right, but they weren't with him at the end. They were with other guys. I don't know. They were with it looked like the Bee Gees at one point. I don't know.
Maybe the only guys got them only after he was done. I don't know.
Possibly. All right. We talked about the lack of originality, the tone, the bloat of this film, and just the production in general. Either of you have anything to add before we wrap this up?
I'm ready to give this our final verdict.
All right, then. Kai, as always, we offer the guest the opportunity to go first. You don't have to, but you can if you want.
No, totally okay. Happy to go first. I was not a fan of this movie, if you couldn't tell from my feedback throughout. That being said, there was moments I enjoyed, and there's silly stuff that I can laugh at. But I think when I made it to the part where the movie turns into Star Wars, I kind of gave up on like trying to like find reason and like this movie. So for those reasons, I'm probably gonna give this movie a D. I'd say the only reason this avoids an F is for the high production and the good music.
It's fair. Oh, we forgot about the most blatant ripoff of Star Wars in the film when they have to shoot down the globes.
Oh, yeah. Right. Like some sort of death
Star. Yeah. Oh boy.
I can go next.
Okay.
This film is outlandish in outer space, and I feel like the fact that this film doesn't really deviate from that too much, knowing that it's just supposed to be fun. And I want to be like Jaws, just dancing around with the partygoers, because this film has that tone. I feel like there is something to be said about writers having to again, put together a lot of outlandish ways to take out Bond, even though they don't succeed. I feel like it really is a bit away from that grounded reality of espionage that one would really expect from some other films or from other films within the Bond series. And as you said, Pat, there's always a course correction. We're going to get that. But I feel like we can really appreciate a film like this just because it's very outlandish. And I'll tell you this, it's not boring. And I feel like that is something that I really enjoy with the film, is that I was very entertained. And even when I was a kid watching this film, I was really entertained. Do I think that it's a great movie? Not really. But I find it a lot more entertaining than Man with a Golden Gun, which for me, I think is another example, right, where the writers and the producers are trying to catch on to very, trendy subjects in the film. But in this particular case, they do that same thing, and it ends up being a bit more iconic to Bond with some of these silly but memorable moments. So while not a great film, I think it's a very fun entry. And I think that I have to put this one just a little below average, but I know that I'm going to watch it again. So for me, this is a C minus.
I like this film, but I find it challenging to rate. It's a bad movie. It ain't gourmet. It's like fast food. I understand why a lot of Bond fans dislike it. It takes the series to a place where it probably never should have gone, and they thankfully never returned to. It has some of the silliest moments in the series. There's a lot in here that I just don't want out of my Bond. It's bonkers. It's bloated. It's probably 15 to 20 minutes too long. Completely over the top. There's some real lowlights in the series in this film. That being said, it does have plenty of things that I like. Anton, I agree with you. Despite being overlong, it's not really boring. And that was one of the things that we both held against The Man with the Golden Gun, was how boring a lot of it was. I think if you can embrace the camp and watch this as a comedy, Moonraker's a lot of fun. Roger Moore is in peak form. Michael Lonsdale is a great villain as Drax. The score is fantastic. It's a visual treat. It's really well filmed. There's beautiful locations. I talked about how much I loved the production design. The special effects are pretty cool, especially for a film from 1979. Every scene is nice to look at, and that's what saves it. Kai, I really agree with you. Like the production of this film is what elevates it above probably what it should be. It's never going to be one of my favorites, but I don't think it's one of my least favorite Bond movies either, because I really do enjoy watching it. I have it ranked somewhere in the middle, maybe a little on the lower end of the middle tier. I appreciate the absurdity of this because it gave us For Your Eyes Only, which is one of my favorite films in the series. Broccoli knew that he had taken things too far with this, and he made the decision to bring things back to earth, literally and figuratively. Anton, I am right there with you on the C minus. It's a little bit below average for me. But
Yeah, I
I
swear,
can't hate it.
listeners,
I can't hate this movie.
listeners, we do not talk about these scores beforehand, I swear.
No, we don't. We will have a pretty good idea of like how we're going to rate it usually, because we agree on a lot of things, but except for Gangs of New York.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's it for Moonraker. Kai, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me again. Always a pleasure for me as well.
I hope we didn't waste your time with this film. I hope you at least had fun.
No, I would never consider, like, I think trying anything for the first time is never a bad thing. I've watched this movie once. I probably am not going to revisit it, except for like the occasional clip on YouTube or something like that. But I'm still glad I got to watch a movie, and more importantly, spend the time and chat with you guys about it and hang out.
Do you have any advice for any listeners that are going to watch the film for the first time?
Turn off your brain, like, completely.
Embrace it. Just embrace the camp.
All right.
Stop, do not try to make sense of anything.
Well
said.
What do we got next week, Anton? Oh, this is going to be a good one. It's our Patreon request episode. We are revisiting Troy.
That's right. That is right.
Wait, you guys cover movies like again?
We will for patrons.
Oh, wait.
Yep.
So how does that work? Because you've already seen it and given it a score. Are you going to watch it again and give it a different score or something?
Possibly.
Okay.
What we said in the where we were explaining the patron part of it is like, we're not going to cover something that we did like a month ago or last season. We're talking about like early episodes, like our first 20 episodes or something like that. Season 1, maybe season 2. But we had a very nice message from one of our patrons who loves the movie Troy and enjoyed our episode on it and asked us to revisit it. So
Is that the one where Brad Pitt goes like, and that's why no one will remember your name?
yeah, it sure is.
Yep. Yes, it is.
20 years old this year. It's a
Eric
2004
Bana,
film.
Brian Cox,
Peter O'Toole,
Brad Pitt,
Brendan Gleeson,
Orlando Bloomin' Onion.
and Garrett Hedlund.
Oh, the legend himself.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're doing next week. And listeners, actually, just like we did last year, we are going to be releasing 2 films next week, one the day before Thanksgiving and one on Black Friday. So that's our gift to you. The Black Friday episode looks like it's going to be Mulan.
That's good.
Yeah.
Wait, the 1997 Disney movie?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
I have seen that movie more times than I can count.
You a fan?
No, it was just one of the few VHSs I owned as a kid. So
You had no
when I had
choice.
yeah,
I think it's an incredible film. One of
it is.
the
It's a great.
It's good.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's just not what really happened in history.
no.
Is it? It's just a legend, right? There's not even any real.
I've never looked into seeing how true, like if
I
it
think
was
it's
a
like-
true story. I just
I
know the
think it's
legend
like the
was very
Trojan War,
different.
where it's like disputed. I think so, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about it on that episode. All right. Well, that's it for this week's edition of Why Wasn't It Better? We will see you next time.